we are where we need to be until we can get our team where they need to be. And I think just, again, the new vision of, just mission and thriving and growing together, we doubled down on that. We focused on not necessarily what are we doing wrong as a company. We looked at our opportunities with our people on where do they need the most help to help us achieve our overall strategic goals. And that's really what we did in 2024. And now, carrying that on through, that's what we're doing. We're laser focused on that. If we do 40% less this year than what we did last year, we're okay with that, because we know that the outcome of that is going to be a better team.
The sound of that tractor means it's time for us to go to work. You're listening to the Give Us the Dirt podcast, powered by Hoopaugh Grading Company. My name is Brandon, and I am your host. Well, you heard us talking a little bit about having a very special guest in the studio with us today. We have got the GOAT back in the studio. We have got the OG, the godfather of dirt.
Oh, no.
Taylor
Please.
may have the Swifties, but this guy has the dirties. We got Brian McManus, owner and president of Hoopaugh Grading Company, back in the studio. Brian, welcome back in.
I'm glad to be here. Please, no more introductions like that again.
You didn't like the dirties? I thought that was pretty good.
I think it might have been the whole Swifty piece, so let's leave all that stuff out. But it's good. I'm glad to be back. Yep.
Brian, we were talking. I was having a little bit of a pity party for myself this morning, because it was just everything that could go wrong was starting to go wrong this morning. But on my way here and thinking about this episode, I started thinking about you. And I was thinking about you because rain just set in, and 5 of the next 6 days have rain in the forecast. And I thought, all right, I spilled my coffee. I dropped a few things this morning, left my keys in my truck. But you've got 5 days of rain coming up. The owner of a very large construction company with 765 people on the payroll. How do you deal with stress like that? I mean, what do you feel like when you get up and you look at the weather report?
Well, I mean, you've talked to me over the years. He's like, it's raining. He's not in a good mood. It's hard to deal with, and I think over the years I've been at this stuff for over 22 years now, and you can't control it, but what you can control is preparing for it the best you can, and just dealing with it after it quits raining. And I think that's really what you have to do. I mean, if there was a time to where I was like, oh no, it's raining and we can't get this done and we're not going to be able to go here. Now the schedule's been adjusted. You don't know when you're going to be able to get things done, and you used to let it just worry you to death.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is, if you do the best you can, you set your work up right, hopefully you got some wet weather work at the same time, we'll prevail. I mean, it's been raining for, and snowing in this area for, as long as this earth's been here.
Shouldn't be a surprise.
There's no need to be, crying about it. I mean, you just kind of got to figure it out and move on. Although 2024 was really wet, that got old. But, you just deal with it. And the ones you really, honestly, you think about the most, it's not about getting the work done. It's the morale of the men and women that's out there doing the work. Because, their proof rolls are ready they had jobs ready for stone base this morning. They had jobs ready for curb and gutter. You had jobs ready for that last lift of dirt on the pads, or your cement in the building pad, or your liming an area. So all facets of the business just has to stop. So whatever plan you had yesterday afternoon, it ain't any good right now. You know? And then whatever you think you're going to do on Thursday when it does quit raining, you're probably not going to be able to do that either. And maybe not even on Friday, and not Saturday, and not, Sunday. And then you miraculously, when the sun comes out, a lot of folks' perception is reality a lot of times. But in our world, just because the sun's out, it's not reality that you can go back to work. It's got to dry, and you got to prep and be able to get for the next productive day. So I hope that answers your question, but I've got to the point where now I don't let it bother me. As long as we do our part as a company on what we know to do, we'll win even when it rains.
What a great perspective. Welcome to the dirt world, right?
Yep.
I mean, you're right. A lot of clients will say, hey, the sun's out today. Where you at? Well, we got 3 inches of rain yesterday. Yep. It's going to be a minute to get back out there. But you're right. It doesn't just impact you as an owner. It impacts the entire team. Everyone has to adjust the plans and pivot when this happens. But, I think about, too, that, even when you have a entire week that's washed out with rain, you still got 75 to 80% of your payroll that's going out the door.
Yeah, your pay. Actually, it's more like 90%. Because we guarantee pay during the week. You're not that much off from a wet week as you are a productive week.
That's
I'd
amazing.
say about 90% of your cost is there because we pay our people to be here. Your equipment payments, they're there. You may burn a little bit less fuel, but other than that, most of your weekly expenses are there. It's there, and it's going to have to be paid.
Well, prior to the academy, and you had a week like this, they go home. Now you've got, this place is full.
Yep.
For the next week. We'll have people in here training and getting on simulators, doing all kind of workforce development and training classes that we've built out over the years here. So at least now we are getting some return on that. Like we're using that downtime to get better.
And I think that's fortunate that we're local. We work 65-mile radius of home, and so everybody can come here. We treat this as a job site. It's required, it's mandatory. If they don't show, it's just like a no-show on a project, and then our policies kick in. But it's been good to have this facility to be able to do that.
How does Brian McManus handle stress? How do you de-stress? The dirties want to know.
I just don't.
You work out?
I work out, yeah. I take care of myself 5 days a week, before I start work in the mornings. That helps, but...
what time are you in the gym?
But right at 5 a.m.
Every day?
Every day.
Machine.
Get up at 4:40 and go at 5 a.m. And get it done. That helps. I think the biggest thing is your family. I learned again a long time ago that you try not to take it home. I try to leave work at work. Try to leave it in my truck when I pull in the house at night, and try not to be on the phone when I walk in, because it was 6:30, 7, 8 o'clock.
We were on the phone till 6:30
last night. So, you try to turn it off. But the biggest thing I think for me, as far as stress, is it didn't always be this way, but we have got the best men and women in the industry around us, and I think that has a huge impact on someone's stress.
Yeah.
And it's if everybody's doing their part, you can lay your head on your pillow at night that everything's okay. Everything will be fine tomorrow morning when you wake up. And that's kind of how I look at things and how I handle it.
What a great place.
It wasn't always a thing.
I'm sure. As a business owner, you carry a lot of that. You feel like, hey, if I don't do it, it's not going to get done. But that's why you invest in leaders and you build up your team so that you can let go of that and trust your people that, hey, you know what, if I'm going to go on vacation this year, if I'm going to take a vacation with my family, the company's not going to fall. I got capable people.
Absolutely. One of our core values is integrity. And obviously that's undivided or just being honest. But the biggest thing behind that is doing the right thing at all times when no one else is looking. And I'm a firm believer, and that core value is one that come from our people on this team. And so, if everybody is adhering to the values because it's in their heart, everybody's always doing the right thing to the best of their ability. So you can sleep at night with that.
That's great. That's great. Brian, you mentioned 2024, it being a wet year. Talk to us about 24. Good year, bad year, tough year?
24 was probably honestly one of the toughest years that I think we've had in a long time. You think about coming out of COVID. COVID was tough. Then you hit the e-commerce boom around here, the residential boom, in 2021, 22, carried on into 2023. 2023 was our largest year we had ever had. But you had a lot of stuff starting to pull back. The commercial side of the business, cut really, I'd say, by 70%. You wasn't having these big box buildings being built. A lot of the manufacturing had slowed up. The residential piece, you had a lot of jobs that were, whether pre-COVID or right out of COVID that you're finally starting to get done, late 2023, early 2024. So you were somewhat teed up to finish a lot of work in late 2023 and early 2024, but then you ran into 9 months of rain. I think 2024 was probably one of the wettest years on record in this area, or at least for how it impacted us. It was.
How many weeks did we go without working a full week?
Well, we went close to eight weeks without working. No, excuse me. We went 6 months. The first 6 months, we worked 7 full 5-day weeks.
Unbelievable.
And that was it. That was all we could record. And then really when you hit July was actually the worst. July was worse than January. I mean, which is July is typically your biggest month.
July when we had the hurricane come through?
Well, what really the hurricane, this was, you had some bad weather. It just rained.
Yeah.
Just a lot of rain in July of 2024, and then that never stopped. I mean, you had somewhat of a wet August. September was somewhat drier, and then you were really teed up to where you didn't have any project starts. The entitlement piece, getting these jobs where they're shovel ready has been somewhat of a nightmare, I think, for our partners, to knowing when they can start. So our earth moving was down. We were probably, and revenue wise, I mean, we were down 15%. So we had a much, we did a whole lot less in 2024. Of course, the flip side of that was it was a good thing. It was a lot of scaling going on, where we had grew a little bit more on the earth moving side than we did the utility side. Our fine grade side was a little bit, heavy, and, just organically, we shifted some things around and was able to scale, I think, where we need to be. The economy seemed to kind of flatten out a little bit, which was a good thing. But also the inflation piece. I mean, cost is still a huge driver. Things are very, very expensive. And you haven't been able to catch up. You had a lot of fade because you had older projects with older budgets, and needless to say, the commodities seem to catch you way before you can catch them on pricing. But overall, I mean, it was a tough year, but we used it as an opportunity to double down, on our strategic planning, to get our team right, the right team in place, and we're looking forward to 2025.
Brian, we talked about we set a goal at the beginning of the year of what we want to do, revenue wise, profit wise, and in June of last year, in July of last year, it didn't look like that was possible. We were so far behind that it didn't look like we could ever get there, but yet we ended up getting pretty doggone close to the numbers that we set. As a business owner, how do you do that? How do you get halfway through the year and look at, all right, we're in a hole right now, and take the next half of the year to be able to get back to that goal? I mean, you mentioned scaling, you mentioned cost control. Like, how do you do that?
Well, I mean, I think it was a lot of everything. I mean, at the end of the day in our world, I mean, you can't cut costs when you've got to get the jobs done. I mean, the jobs are going to cost you what they're going to cost you. The diesel fuel, you're going to burn that amount. But what you can do is make sure that you've got good planning. We've got solid plans. We're executing on those plans. Our leadership doubled down on those efforts. I mean, we really had very intentional conversations about where we at on the jobs. What do we need to do to either stop the bleed or, increase the gain on those particular projects. But, the goal was just to get done, check the boxes on those things. And then the other thing is, Mother Nature. I mean, there's a lot of luck associated with it. I mean,
it dried
up some, and you had a good run, and you're able to double down when it is dry to make hay while the sun's shining. And then we would have probably hit our goal had December not been as wet as it was. December ended up being a pretty wet month, but you put it really back on your team, because at the end of the day, I mean, we've got good processes. We follow our proven processes, and we communicate and we get along, and we thrive and grow together. We can hit about any mark we want to achieve. And,
that's amazing.
I'm a firm believer in that, and but weather plays a huge role.
Sure.
But I will tell you, had it not rained, we may have been looking for more work than what we had on the books, because we would have chewed through a lot of it. So, things happen for a reason, sometimes, and maybe the rain was a godsend for us to carry us through with the team that we had, and so forth. And then now we're ready. We're ready to roll. I just hope that I hope the economy kind of stays steady and not crazy like it was.
Yeah.
Because I don't think any company, especially in the vibrant Charlotte market, needs that right now. I mean, I think everybody's retooling, everybody's scaling. You're building your teams. we don't need to get into what we were in 2022, 2023.
Well, and who knows what that's going to look like right now. We were hoping for a little bit more calmer waters heading into 25, but it seems we got white waters right now.
A lot of rough seas ahead.
Yeah. Well, that's a testament to your leadership and to your point to the team to have half a year of rain and to be able to come back and recapture that through productivity, efficiency, and getting it right the first time. Because the reality is you can't price yourself back to profitability. That's work that you had priced a year, 2 years ago.
3 years ago,
So you don't have the opportunity to build that into your price. You just got to perform. You got to get it done, and to get back is a great testament to the team. Brian, I want to ask you. So 24, you kind of walked us through 24, but as a business owner, I imagine sometimes you get to these crossroads, right, where you're growing, and then you get to this point to where, all right, now we've done more than we've ever done before, but we're making less than we've ever made before. And so it's this crossroads here, right? We're either going to go to the moon or we're going to figure out what we want to be and what we want to do and how to do it the best. And so do you remember getting to that point as a business owner? And then what do you do at those crossroads?
Well, we definitely got there in 2023. We had a really big year in 2023 and realized that. And it's like, wow, it ain't keeping a lot. We've had smaller years and kept more. And then 2024 was, more of the same, with the exception of, we were 15% down and still yielded, in essence, the same year as 2023. So, that's pretty monumental. That goes to show you that, more is not always better, in a sense. And, we've always known that, but, when you're trying to meet the demands of your customers, and then meet the demands of the market and the competition that you have, sometimes you got to be careful you'll get over your skis, and I'll be the first to admit in 2022, 2023, we felt that, and that was tough. It was, here we are, we've got this great culture, this great teamwork mentality, and, we failed. We fell on our face on some things, and I think in 2024 we realized that, and we used it as a scaling opportunity, but not only just scaling. You really realize that, all right, and we did this back in 2017. It's like, all right, we are where we need to be until we can get our team where they need to be. And I think just, again, the new vision of, just mission and thriving and growing together, we doubled down on that. We focused on not necessarily what are we doing wrong as a company. We looked at our opportunities with our people on where do they need the most help to help us achieve our overall strategic goals. And that's really what we did in 2024. And now, carrying that on through, that's what we're doing. We're laser focused on that. If we do 40% less this year than what we did last year, we're okay with that, because we know that the outcome of that is going to be a better team. And, so I think we're doubled down on the team that'll help us get there. That's the only way you can get there, because without the team, without the men and women that knows what they're doing to handle that workload and to be able to get it done, it doesn't matter how much you got on the books. You're going to fail, and you'll fail miserably. You'll fade more than you've ever thought you'll fade, and it won't take but a few to do it. A few jobs. So
I always appreciate your transparency, your vulnerability, humility as you talk about these things. It's hard to admit that maybe we didn't get it right every time. But what I do admire about you, and you mentioned this, is that having a strategic plan has always been important to you, because it creates alignment within the team, and it gets everybody pointing towards the same goal, so that we're not distracted by the shiny things, right? The distractions out there, the things that could take us off what we're really trying to do. And you mentioned 17. That was the first time you really sat down and gone through this process, but we went through it again last year. And you've mentioned it several times, but what came from that process wasn't go to the moon. It was what?
It was people development.
Invest in people.
It's all investing in your team. Absolutely. That's what it was all about. Nothing else. I don't even think there was a revenue goal. Obviously, profitability, we'd like to keep more. But the only way you're going to be able to do that is invest in your people.
I love it. I love it. You know, you can sit there and you can list problems and issues and things we got to work out a mile long. But all those things resolve themselves if you invest in your people and you really start to work on getting the right people, developing people, giving them opportunities, getting their hearts, getting their buy-in into the mission and vision. And then that's where we grow and thrive together, as you said. So great use of the rain to go back and do that. Is that a painful process to walk through a strategic plan?
It is. I mean, because, you know, we had, 16 to 18 people with us, you know, in that meeting. And it's very interesting to sit back and be quiet as an owner and listen to your team go at it on some things they agree on, some things they don't agree on. What one may say may come off different than to someone else, but sitting there listening to all of them, it number one, it makes you proud that they can recognize the opportunities that you have to do better as a company. But it also you got to pull it all in to discern all that and determine, okay, well, what is smart right now? Because some ideas are grand ideas, but it takes time to get to those ideas, and you got to make sure that you have a team that can help you through those particular steps. You can't just go to the moon. You got to build the rocket. You got to do all that stuff. And that's very similar in our business to where, you've got to create the strategic plan to where it can be like a domino effect. Otherwise, you'll fail. I've done that, many times over my career to where you've got this grand goal, but you wasn't set up to be able to achieve it. Mm-hmm. So then it works for 30 to 60 days, and it seems like you're checking all the boxes, and all of a sudden it's like, we're never going to get there. That's going to take years to do that. Well, you've got to be very intentional about making sure that you throttle back some of the ideas and say, okay, how do we discern this, but how do we break these things down in components to where it's achievable? And I think, we sat down, we had our strategic planning meeting, and we had a lot of that. And a lot of it was driven to people development. But then when you get into the next meeting and you roll up your sleeves and you start talking about, well, how do we check the box here? It's like, oh, my goodness. Well, we got to work on the utility side. We've got to work on the earth moving side. We've got to work on the fine grading side. This guy don't even have those qualifications to be able to do that. So then you really have to back it all up and say, we got to crawl before
What's the
we
first
walk.
step?
What's the first step?
Yeah.
So I think that becomes it becomes a very eye-opening experience for your team, and it's like, wow,
yeah.
It really is hard to move the needle.
But it's great. You end up building this roadmap for success, and you start tackling it 90 days at a time. 90 days at a time. And just trying to chip away at it. But I enjoyed the sessions. Those are tough sessions. They're long sessions. But what was cool is day one, while we've got everybody in the room, you kind of took a back seat to that day, and you let everybody dream a little bit. You let everybody talk about where we wanted to go, what they felt, what they were seeing, what changes they wanted to do. And I think by doing that, you create buy-in from the team, so that next day when we start scripting out the plan on how to get there, we say, hey, this is your idea. This was yours. It's Brian didn't come down with stone tablets and say, hey, this is the law. This is where we're going. Like, you created this plan.
Well, you have to. They're the ones doing the work, and then not only do they need the buy-in, they've got to go and get the buy-in of the teams that they're leading. Yeah. Because really they're the ones just making the things, the impact to all the changes. You take it all the way down to the labor in the ditch, or the labor pulling string line, or the mechanic or whatever. All that has to be, it's driven by the individuals that's out there actually performing the work. Mm-hmm. So you have to have buy-in.
Labor. Always an issue for us in the construction industry. And you've heard me, I've used the analogy of the transfer portal effect. And I think we are experiencing that in the construction industry. I know Brian's a big college football guy, Gamecock. He tolerates me knowing that I'm a lifelong Clemson guy. But you think about the transfer portal. For those of you that are listening that understand college football, we've entered into this new age where players can pick up and leave at any time. They get frustrated, they can leave. They don't like their playing time, they can pick up and leave. They want to get paid more money, they pick up and leave. Transfer portal has created chaos within college football. Now, granted, it's a little bit different because their runway is short, right? Their career is possibly 4 years.
Three.
Three years. So it is shorter runway, but it's created havoc within the system, and coaches and teams are having to adjust to that. And I think in a lot of ways we're experiencing that right now in the construction industry. We've got people that are being told that, hey, if you're not happy or you think you aren't being treated the right way, you should be making more money. You shouldn't have to work that hard. You shouldn't have to do that. You can do better over here, and they're entering the transfer portal. And they're going in and they're taking that job and they're getting paid more money, but there's a lost sense of loyalty. There's a lost sense of having a long-term picture of understanding the strategic plan. Like, we're going somewhere. We can't get you there today, but there is a plan. There are opportunities. How do you, as a business owner, deal with the transfer portal?
Well, I mean, it ain't a matter of how. I mean, it's just, unfortunately, I think it's a hand that we've been dealt. You know, the thing about the Charlotte market, you know, it's a very vibrant market. You know, it's busy, but it is our labor pool is a small pond, and you know, there's a lot of trading back and forth. You know, especially on the skilled side. And you know, we started this podcast several years ago. You know, we basically we've opened our arms with our academy and said, hey, competitors, y'all come in and see what we're doing. I mean, we need you guys doing it because, you know, our industry is a dying breed. But, you know, you find that a lot of them are not playing nicely with that, you know. I mean, whether you know, it's all well and good. You know, I've always been one on this, you can call it a transfer portal or whatever. You know, if someone has got a better opportunity out there, you know, outside of the HGC walls, then, you know, I'm all for you as an individual to go out there and have a better opportunity. You know, I would congratulate you for doing that, and would advise you to do that. You know, if the grass is greener on the other side. But you know, the one thing that I think we've done here is we've instilled in creating a culture to where we can thrive and grow together. You know, as a team, and train you to be the absolute best that you can be, working alongside, you know, the best teammates that you can be, and hope that you would stay. You know, but it's tough because with the transfer portal, as you mentioned it, I mean, people are throwing out $1 more an hour, $2 more an hour. They're offering up all these opportunities that are out there, and you know, maybe 50% of that is true. But you know, what we've seen, you know, historically, is the call comes back.
They come back.
You know, I don't fit that culture, and you know, the one thing I would, you know, reach out in this conversation, it's not how I handle it. It's how do we handle it as an industry. And, you know, and I think our competition, you know, it's time to grow up, create your own academy, create your own workforce development, so that when we go to these high schools, we can compete with the high schools together, so that people want to do what we do. You know, we talk to parents all the time that come in here and say, my child don't want to go to college. You know, how do we get them to can you mentor and teach my kid so that I can not push him to go to college so that he will have a career? You know, yeah, we can, but we need everybody else to put their money where their mouth is too, and not be a transfer portal, someone that can just pony up more money and grab that talent, because that's not the talent you're pulling out of high school. I mean, so we all really need to work together.
You know who you sound like right now, don't you? I've set you up.
Well,
you know who you sound like, don't you?
I don't.
Dabo.
Okay. I was hoping you was going to say Saban.
You sound like Dabo. You sound, you know, but I mean, seriously, the comparison, you know, Dabo has fought against the transfer portal because he believes, like you do, develop people, build a culture where people want to be at, to give them opportunities, career development opportunities, and recruit the right way. Yep. Recruit the people that are the right fit. And that's how you keep people from entering the transfer portal. That's how you keep coaches from entering the transfer portal. You maintain your team. That's how everybody thrives and grows together.
Well, we all know, I mean, we've proven it. You know, organically, growth is much better than outside growth. Now, we've got some talent here that has come from the outside that, you know, they fit our core values, and they were basically had the core values when they started. But it's a whole lot better to do it organically within. I mean, we've seen that. I mean, if you look at the statistics of the retention of people, you know, it's someone coming from the outside is highly unlikely that you're going to make it, you know, much past 6 months. That's just the way it is.
It's hard to change somebody.
It's hard to change it. And so if we can, if we can all work real hard at that, and I realize we've got ads out there now. We're hiring people left and right, from the outside with experience that come in, but we're also doubling down and trying to create them within a whole lot more than we are from the outside,
right?
Because it just benefits. And then again, we're building careers. We're not short-term jobs here. So we need someone that's here for the marathon, not the sprint. And I think we'll continue. I guess to answer your question, we're going to stick to our game plan, and we're going to continue doing what we're doing, and we're going to do our best not to participate in the transfer portal, and we're going to continue driving the vision and culture that we've always done, such that we've got the HGC employee for 20 years from now, not just tomorrow.
I hear you, Dabo.
So
I love it. I love it. Brian, before we go on to 25, what's one thing that you're excited to turn the page on for 2024? You're excited to put that in the rearview mirror?
Nothing really excited to put in the rearview mirror. I mean, I think I look at 2024 like we said earlier, strategically, we learned a lot from 2022, 2023, and I think in 2024 we were able to put that on paper. We were able to develop strategy. I think if I had to look at anything on, let's say, turning the page, it's what's the next chapter because of what 2024 allowed us to do. I think there's peace and joy in the fact that, I'm excited because, I think we're getting ready to turn this place upside down. That's how I feel.
What a great answer. All right, 2025, let's look forward. It's already starting off to be a little bit of a crazy year. There's a lot of things outside of our control within the dirt world that are going to impact us whether we like it or not. There's a lot going on, but let's talk about our industry. Let's talk about the dirt world. And I'm going to throw out some questions. I want you to fill in the blank on these questions. All right, first one. The company that becomes best in class has figured out how to blank.
Just continue to grow your people within. I think that's where it's at. It's not about getting bigger, adding more people to your census. I just think you got to continue to work with your people and recruit. You've got to recruit. You've got to bring in people that doesn't have any experience in our industry. You have to do that. You've got to be able to sell your company, that it's a company that the kids of your employees would want to work there, number one. And then number two, that, someone graduating high school would say, I want to go work for that company. I think if you can do that, you'll succeed.
All right. The most in-demand position in our industry in 25 will be blank.
All of them.
There's not one that you think that.
There's not. Obviously, if you look at our ads right now, we're looking for utility, folks that are somewhat storm drain, water, sewer, utility positions. But the fact of the matter is we're looking for anybody that is willing to work and
CDL drivers,
join the industry,
welders,
mechanics, just anybody that wants to get into our industry is what our door's open for. But utilities is a big one right now, and I think it's a big one for everyone. The jobs are changing, more pipe shown on the plans, and it definitely is the critical path to getting something done. So that is a highly sought out position right now.
The biggest lesson we learned in 24 was blank, and it shaped our strategy for the future by blank.
Oh man, that's
a two-parter, Brian. I threw you a curveball.
I don't know if I can comprehend two-part questions.
Biggest challenge in 24, and it shaped our future by what?
I think the challenge in 24, honestly, was just not knowing where the economy. There was a lot of uncertainty in 2024. You can look at the election every which way you want to look at it. I think it's good that it's over. No matter the outcome, it's done. Everything now is kind of locking in. Maybe the next 4 years we'll figure that out. But I think getting that behind us, that was the biggest. It really wasn't a challenge for us. I just think it was a challenge for the U.S. in general. And then now I think what we're seeing, moving forward is maybe predictability. Because, we had no predictability in 2024 on where we're going to be. And I think now we can start predicting, okay, we can predict our outcome for our workload, and maybe will allow us to scale the right way as long as things doesn't just go haywire and crazy
for
2025. I hope that answers the question.
That's a great answer. Great answer. All right, last one. One challenge we're determined to tackle this year is blank, and we're planning to address it by blank.
I think, just continuing to double down and grow together as a team. I mean, every time we have a problem, or let's call it an opportunity, we failed each other some way, shape, or form. We didn't do what we knew to do as people. We've dropped a ball on our core values. So I think, if we'll just double down on that growth and just look in the mirror that, how could I have done things differently with that conversation or setting up that task, we'll win.
Well, and it's funny you say that because the answer's there. We know exactly what to do. There is a proven process.
Yep.
We've seen it work. We've developed it. We know it works. It's just getting people to follow it. And I know you've taken that on personally to make sure that people understand what that proven process is and that we get it on paper, that we create a way to replicate it amongst all the different project teams. So tackling that proven process, showing them this is how you do it. This is what works.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, it's navigating, waters or a road, with a map. I mean, there's always a proper way to get there. Yep. And it's a proven way to get there. But, time and time again, we'll wander off on a path somewhere that is not the right way. And, but it's trying to keep everybody on track, following that process. And if you'll do it, it'll work, and we'll win.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll win every time. We'll never lose, ever lose. We'll win every time.
And that's something. Last we had Ryan Schmidt on, our friend from Petticoat Schmidt, and he's big on processes, and he's big on setting up those processes and getting everyone following them. And so it's interesting to hear you as a business owner too talk about the importance of, hey, we're not recreating anything here. We don't have to invent anything. It's there. We know exactly how to build this job if we follow the process.
That's it.
All right, let's zoom out a little bit. What do you see happening within the industry and the market 25? What do you feel like is going to happen?
I mean, I think the commercial side of things seems to be picking back up. There was a lot of projects pushed late 2023, 2024. There's a lot more activity in that space. Still seems to be a bit uncertain, but a lot more activity. I think the residential market here in Charlotte still seems to be, very strong. Cost is still a problem. I mean, obviously, just how folks can afford to do what we're doing in our area, much less other areas across the country, just doesn't make sense. So you somewhat think at some point all that's got to pull back. But overall, I think things are relatively strong. Again, like I said earlier, I hope that it's manageable because the one thing that we're going to probably end up having to do, and I think there'll be others that'll have to do it if it gets too much more demand. There's going to be some people turn some things down, and because there's not going to be enough of us to do the work. I mean, we felt that, in 2022, 2023, and then we had a material shortage, which drove things out even longer. Where now, all that's kind of caught up. People are, producing products again. You can get heavy equipment, but the one thing that takes a little bit longer, not a little bit longer, a lot longer, is that people development. So I think, like Hoopaugh, for instance, I mean, we're not going to go out and get every job in the world that we think we need. I mean, we're going to do our best to get every job that we need to achieve our strategic goals that aligns with our structure and our team. That's going to be our goal. We're going to do our best. Now, we may end up still having a little too much because you never know when they're going to start. But overall, I still think it's a good market. I think the future's bright, in the Charlotte area. So,
man, that's great news.
Yeah,
Brian, I always enjoy getting you in here. I always enjoy hearing your perspective on not just what's to come, but what we've been through to get here. And I love that you are constantly playing the long game. Some of the things that we started back in 2017, 18. We're just now starting to see the fruits of that. And that takes vision. It takes commitment to a plan. So I always enjoy hearing that from you. I always enjoy hearing your positive perspective. I couldn't get you to complain about anything. I tried, and you wouldn't.
Well, they don't want to hear that.
I don't think you believe that. I don't think you...
I don't. Listen, if you got to complain about something, you need to look in the mirror and figure out what you're complaining about because you're probably the problem. So
I love that. Brian, thank you for coming back in. We always get a little boost in our ratings when we put you in the podcast. So maybe this will give us that spike we're looking for.
No more introduction.
No more
Brian
introduction.
coming back.
All right, deal. This sounds good. Brian, thank you.
Thank you. Enjoyed it.
Until next time, keep leading with purpose and passion. If you like listening to the Give Us a Dirt podcast, we want you to hit the like button and subscribe for more great content.